So good afternoon. My name is Jeff Thompson. I am a college professor and the coordinator of the virtual reality production program at Conestoga College in Kitchener. We just had our 7th cohort graduate, and we're accepting our 9th cohort in September. It's a 1-year postgraduate program. And in that program, I mainly teach courses in pipeline and VR prototyping. And so for today, I want to explore how we really shouldn't think of them too early as the same thing, because it might get in the way of iterative design. With regard to extended reality prototyping, one of the fields we build the most off of is user experience. However, unlike UX, that has a tool like Figma that is predominantly used, there's many tools that we use for extended realities, and many of the tools might be good for different things. Maybe they're good for experience design. Maybe they're good for task flows with menus or for virtual production. And often the tools that we can use inside the headset, the software doesn't even consider themselves to be prototyping tools themselves, even though they do it well. So we're going to look at a variety of these tools. Let's look at the difference between pipeline and prototyping. Prototyping is, we've talked about it a lot so far at this conference, but it's about communication. So learning users' needs, validating assumptions, and identifying issues, getting feedback before we build anything permanent. Versus pipeline, which focuses on optimization and ease of flow between tools. And if we look at like Figma for a model, it doesn't matter that developers can't really use it in the pipeline because the communication that they get from it is worth its weight in gold. But sometimes we can fall into the trap of thinking of pipeline a little bit too early, and the goals for pipeline might supersede those of prototyping. For example, when developers hear terms like vibe coding, AI models, kit bashing, might make the hairs on the back of their neck stand up because they're horrible for optimization for pipeline. But when it comes to communication and iterative design, they're absolutely exciting new tools that we can use. So in the next portion, I'm going to walk you through tools that support different stages of XR prototyping, whether it's wireframing, grayboxing, kit bashing, or interaction design. And to help with the continuity between all the different tools that I'm showcasing here, I gave myself a design challenge that was to create a bowling alley inside a park. So I did that for each of the tools, and I'm just going to talk about some of the strengths of all the tools, and hopefully maybe you have a new tool that you want to try at the end of this session. So let's dive in. We're going to start with a VR favorite from the Tiltbrush family, OpenBrush. Okay, so OpenBrush is great because you don't have to download models, so it's very fast. You can draw solids very quickly. You can wireframe really quickly. You see I created using the tools here, the rocks and the terrain, very fast. Most of these I only spent 10 to 15 minutes on, and the ones I spent longer, usually they had interaction design. Some of the benefits to this tool is some of the really creative brushes that we have, for example, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with them. The pedal brush here, there's fire brushes, there's, you can draw smoke and clouds. However, a lot of these don't transfer over to other 3D softwares. And when it comes to hard surfaces, a lot of times it's better to wireframe things out. And so drawing the lines, as you can see here, I'm drawing out the bowling alley and drawing out the spot where the pins are going to go. But really fast, a lot of my students, when they're doing low fidelity prototyping, they love working in tools like Tiltbrush just because they can quickly iterate and change the design, and it gets them in that spatial design mode quickly. As you see, I had to draw a sphere for the bowling ball. Gravity Sketch is a similar tool, but it does have a lot more hard surface model tools. I'm going to start similarly with a brush that is used for drawing the base here. And rocks, very similar. And one thing I do like about it is it's really easy to grab whatever you've created and reposition it. I do like the user experience of that. You also have tools where you can design with splines between your two controllers and draw surfaces. So I'm going to be drawing the bowling alley with that. So that is a different tool than what we saw with OpenBrush. And then we have our geometry bases where we can work with them, but we can actually do some basic modeling inside of Gravity Sketch as well. So you can see here, I'm creating a base mesh of a cylinder. You're able to change the subdivisions inside VRTO, so that's useful. And then you can grab the vertices, and I'm going to create the pins in this method. So that's useful that you can do a little bit of modeling, and then I'm able to duplicate those and quickly place the pins. And using just straight geometry for the bowling ball, and then using wireframing to do the rest. Now, what's great about Gravity Sketch is also how you can export in a variety of different formats. They have a online dashboard that you can use to import and export. Also, instead of having to write text by hand, you can actually use a text tool here, which is a lot cleaner design. So very similar, but there are some important differences between the two. Now, Arkio, mainly used for architecture. It's great for prototyping with pass-through if you wanted to see what a low-fidelity shed would look like in your yard or something. It does have a limited library, so I'm using the trees there, and I'm just placing those fairly quickly. In their paid library, I don't have a paid version of it. They have rocks, but I'm just using their triangular prisms for that. You can also go to an above mode, which is really useful when you're designing in large format. They have a limited color palette that you can use, but you can see it's quite quick to change the colors with that. It really excels when it comes to hard surfaces and meshes. You can see you can change them both in positive, and in the next one, I'm just going to drop a person here, but in the next one here, create the mesh easily, but I can also create the negative space and draw it through as well. So it's sort of unique in that with that ability as a tool. I'm jumping back in. It does not have a sphere, unfortunately, so I had to go back to painting tools to create a sphere. So that was interesting, and then group it. And then for the pins, I'm just gray boxing them out for these, but you can duplicate them quite easily. Being in VR, it's much easier to place things spatially, which is great designing inside headset. You do have a viewport, but you can't change the focal length, so it's a little bit limited, but it's nice to have that so you can take pictures if you're sharing your designs that way. This is one that's often slept on, Storyboarder by Wonderunit. It's quite amazing how versatile this tool is. It's a storyboarding software which allows you to work in 3D and 2D. You can even print out a worksheet, draw via pencil, and then with the QR code at the top there, scan that, and that will actually take your frames and put it back in as the keyframes or the thumbnails down below here. You can also round trip with Photoshop, so if that's your preferred tool, that's really useful. But the tool that I really get excited about is the 3D tool, the shot generator here. And it has two different windows that you can work with. We have the above window view, and then we have the 3D view. You can change it so that it can be a room, a floor, or an open space. And when you add items, it's sort of interesting. It only ever adds a cube, but then you have to change that cube into different items from their library. Or you can add a human and then change it to different models that they have too. So you can see I added the cube, and then down below, I changed it to a rock, and then you can change the sizing, the Z height, and you can quickly, I find using the top view is really quick for really big design, versus when I'm tweaking like angles and stuff like that, it's better in the 3D view. And so yeah, pretty quick to also duplicate items, adding in the rocks and trees, and to work with geometry here too, 3D geometry. When you bring in characters, they come pre-rigged, so that's awesome. So you can actually move them around. So we're going to, I'm just finishing up the design here. Now, if you don't have a model in the library, what you can do is you can go to a tool like Blender. So you go to the cube and you upload GLB, or so you export a GLB or a GLTF, and then you can bring that into the program. And you'll notice that although it's nice having the gray box look to it, a lot of times they'll come in with the texture on them as well. So quickly changing that. Now, this is really the strength of Storyboarder by Wondernet is the cameras, because you can use them as like a low fidelity tool for virtual production, because you can change the focal lengths and it's really easy to change the angles. This is awesome. It's the Open Shot Explorer, sorry, and it iterates multiple versions of the shot beforehand, and so you can pick which shots you might like, and when you click on them, you can see over on the top there, it actually adds a camera to there, and then you can go and tweak the angles of the cameras, either in the top view, or you can click on the cameras to change to them in the 3D view, and then adjust your angles accordingly too. And it has a VR feature. A lot of people don't realize this. It's a little awkward getting into it because you have to type in the URL, but in here you have your viewports with your cameras. It's very natural moving the cameras and getting your angles. So when we're doing some virtual production in class, a lot of students will do their low fidelities with this. You can even change the skeletal structure and the posing, and you can add in new models, you can adjust models. It's actually quite a versatile tool. It's also a multiplayer tool as well. So I've had my whole class join me in there, and it's totally free. And you can build a course on the storyboard. So if you are delivering in for a PDF or format or something like that, it's great. So yeah, definitely something to think about from a virtual production point of view. Now, a lot of people use Blender. Blender Kit does make it so that you can use it quite easily by quickly kit bashing. And so you can drag in models, you can drag in materials, you can drag in HDRIs or entire scenes. So here I'm just searching bowling, and I'm going to be grabbing both the bowling ball and the pin. As you can see, I can just drag and drop it in, and it comes in fully textured. Again, if we're thinking about pipeline, maybe not optimized, but for prototyping, super fast workflow. And then you have the benefits of using Blender, of course. Like I had to adjust the UVs here, so it helps that you know it, but if you don't, I could have got away with the boards being the wrong way, really. And so yeah, it's a good introduction to Blender anyway. Here I opened up another scene and then copied the grass into it, and now I'm just quickly kit bashing from the library out. Mostly just knowing how to navigate in Blender, knowing how to change your viewports, visuals, and you can start to actually design in it. The problem is though, how do you share this, right, with clients? Maybe they don't know how to use Blender. So there are a few things you can do. You can, if you're going to 2D, like you can use it for virtual scouting, for example, because you can change the focal length. But often what I'll do too is I will use an equirectangular camera. So changing the camera to 360 and exporting in 360. You have to be in cycles, so it does take a little longer, especially when you're exporting an 8K image. But then you can bring that over to a tour creator like Thesis or Lepenter. They have a good free model. My students love that, right? Then from there, if you have multiple, you can create it just like you would a real estate tour, and you can share it for all the parties involved so that they can easily get a sense of what it's like inside the space. So that's one way. I've actually developed a preset in Blender that allows you to use 2.5D and the 3D models here too, and to edit the actual 360 photos as well, as a way that you can prototype ideas and be in VR as well. It's a very versatile tool for sure. Blender is, I'm sure many are aware. Then another thing you can do is there's 3D worlds. It allows you to take GLB files and bring them in, and then have an avatar actually walk through your GLB file. So you can take your Blender and share it that way, and share it as a link. And there's more and more sites that are using WebXR to with GLB files. So we're going to see more of this. So just different ways of sharing them easily. The next one is Twinmotion. We're getting into a lot more high fidelity when it comes to visual fidelity. There's not a lot of interaction, unfortunately, but you can design large scenes super fast in here. I usually start by dropping water into the main plane, like so, and then dragging in the landscape. And the landscape comes with its own tools for sculpting. that only show up while you have the landscape highlighted, and you can easily start creating islands and taking away to create rivers and ponds. It's very organic in the way that you use it. And then it has a very extensive library, also with fab integration. So if they don't have it, you can download it. And so you can see that you can kit bash very quickly in this environment. This is an interesting tool. So like you can use place and scatter, and then the box that's down here, you can drag a variety of different foliage into it, like trees, grass, and bushes and stuff like that, and then just organically paint the foliage in. So that's super fast way of building out your scenes. And there you can import a lot of the geometry to Unreal if you're using in a pipeline, but unfortunately it's not too easy to bring over the terrain and anything that's animated, but a lot of it does come over. So I've brought in now the human and the bullying here, but I'm now using a paths tool. There's character and vehicle, and you can see just by clicking the pen, you can create character paths very easily. There's a bunch of sliders to change what type of clothing they're wearing and how wide the path is, but you can see it's a very fast iterative tool. Same with cars. You can see as I'm clicking, it's just going to create that vehicle path. And yeah, so it's amazing how fast you can work with it for sure. It, again, as mentioned, if you don't have it in their library, you can use Fab's library. So I'm just copying out the pins for this one. And then you have in ambience, you can change the time of day dynamically. You can change the weather dynamically. You can change the heights of the trees. And yeah, the seasons even as well. And you can also do that when you're in the VR viewer. Speaking of the VR viewer, how do you get there? Well, I'm taking a couple of panoramas, which are based off of your viewport. And then we can, so I move forward, I'm going to add another panorama. And then from there, I can create a project. So in the project, I can add whatever media I've captured, whether it's video capture, traditional stills, or panoramas, and then build out the project. And then it shares a project that is you can share as an exe file to your clients. And from there, they can open it up and they have access to click around similar to how you would in the actual program, but without all the tools. And it also has VR integration as well. So you see here, I can just click on the different panoramas and it jumps me to the different viewports pretty quickly. So that's why I like to work with that flow. Right now I'm going to VR, starting that up as long as it's tethered to your machine. And you can travel through in there, and there's a lot of things you can do, like you can change the day, time, and weather and all that, and you can also jump between the panoramas. So a very versatile tool, very high fidelity for the look of it. But again, it's sort of missing some interaction. So we're going to look at some tools now that are going to bring in interaction a little bit more. Shapes is probably one of the ones that's used the most, Shapes XR. We're going to first start using the 3D geometry to build out. At first, I'm just talking about you can see the variety here. And actually, then on the right controller, you can change it so that you can paint as well. So I'm going to start very similar to the other ones, actually, this one. So using a hull surface to draw the base, I'm using a textured brush too. So it has a little bit of a higher fidelity look to it. But even though I'm blocking things out roughly, similar to the other ones. And then using geometry, I'm quickly building out the rest with our library. Now, you can't change the vertices of the geometry, but you can combine objects and group them together. So for the pins, I'm just creating a quick combination of the two and using that as my model and grouping them together. So you can, through slide states, it's very much like Figma. In Figma, we create interaction by having one slide where it looks like the button's not pressed, and the next slide it looks like it's pressed, and it's just switching slides really quickly. Similarly, you have slide states in Shapes XR. So in this slide, I have everything positioned accordingly. I'm going to duplicate the slide and only change the position of the ball. And then I'm going to do that 4 more times so that I can through slide state, have the ball look like it's animating towards the pins. So yeah, I just jumped ahead there. On this one, it's going to hit the pins and they're going to go flying in this slide state. Then, yeah, moving the ball forward. And then once we have all those slide states, I can use the right thumbstick to go through, but now I can also use the prototyping features where I can use add interaction, and I can trigger either clicking when I touch an object, or sometimes just through timing, change to the next slide. So on here, as you touch the ball and enter into it with your hand, it's going to have slide 2 show. And then from slide 2, you can see now it's showing that line. Slide 2, I'm going to add an interaction to. I just switch over to that slide with the right thumbstick after delay, and I just change the scene with a short delay. And I repeat that. So I'm just going to use, I think, 0.12 and repeat that so that when I change between my slide states over on the left thumbstick there, you can see that it looks like it's actually hitting the pins. And when I touch the ball, it's triggering the interaction. I prefer to use, personally, the tool Zoey, though. There's 2 tools for Zoey. There's the Unity tool that goes on top of Unity, and there's the in-headset app. So I'm showing the in-headset app here. I'm starting off with a blank scene and then going to environments. They have one called mountains, but there's also a lot of community environments that you can use as well. And they have a decent library, but also Sketchfab or Fab integration. I'm just going to quickly use those to design out, but I'm going to add a couple extra things to this because I'm going to add interaction to it. So it has a variety of different interactions that you can do per item to really prototype interactive design. You can see I'm using Sketchfab there to bring in the pins and the bowling ball. And you can see, I just did it briefly there, but you'll see in the next one that it's really easy to turn on gravity, grab, and collisions, and to have things just affected by the physics of it. So if you want to test the prototype of that. So I'm grabbing the bowling ball there, I'm turning on gravity, grab, and collisions. And then on the left thumbstick, you have the play button where you can test out your prototype, just to test out the physics of the scene. So I can grab Jupiter there, and you can see I can toss it, and unfortunately it wasn't a strike. But so when I touch the button, I want the bowling ball to come back to the 3D axis that I have there. So you have in there, you can go to interaction designs, and you can have multiple interactions on the same object. You can also have objects trigger each other one after the other to create very detailed interactions. So on the condition here, on touch of the button, so you can see it's very, very intuitive here. So I select the object from the scene. It's going to be the button. Either hand on enter, that's going to be what triggers the interaction. But what action? So there's a variety of actions. You can scale, you can move to, there's audio, rotate around, there's a jump to scene as well. And so it's going to cause the object Jupiter to move towards the target 3D axis with a time of 1 second. And then I want it to repeat so that I can touch the button multiple times for it to return. So a very simple interaction just for the time of this speech. But you can see now as I threw it away, totally missed, but I press it and it came back. And I press it again and it came back. So it's working. I do have a little sample of a little bit more advanced interaction here where I created a Fruit Ninja-ish type experience here where I was able to cut fruit, or here I was able to use the move between for carrots to shoot the different targets. And now we're going to talk about Horizon Worlds. They're really moving over to their desktop tool, which is using a lot of AI tools. So it's really fascinating. They have the in-device tool, but you can see here you can generate 3D models now. You can generate sound effects, textures, HDRIs, ambient audio, and you can generate scripts for vibe coding. So I started off here, I placed some rocks and I wanted to change the texture. So I said short grass with some mud and rocks, tileable. It takes a while, but they allow you to use their assets while and keep designing while it is thinking about it. So the rock that I have highlighted there, right now it is trying to come up with a texture for it. And so in the meantime, I'm just going to quickly build out the scene, or part of the scene. And you see there, it applied the texture to the rock. And it looks pretty good, especially from a prototyping point of view. Really, we're not being too picky. We just want to design fast. Here I'm designing I misspelled create, but create a park. I want to have a different ground surface, create a park with large rocks. So it's going to generate that as a mesh for me. And what's nice about this, I should have picked large, but what's nice about it is it generates multiple meshes for you. And before generating the texture, which would take even longer, you get to pick which mesh you like, and then you generate the texture. So it's not, it saves you a little bit of time there. Definitely speeding up the results here. But again, I can start to design in the meantime, and you can see what it generated there. And then I have to hit save model, which does take a little bit of time. And it puts it over to your assets. And so I'm just going to quickly start adding in some more scenes as it's finalizing the details on that mesh. And then you can see I can just drag that in. And there you go. I actually did a pretty good job with it. I was happy with the results on that one. And so I was going to continue to make the bowling alley here, bringing in the alley and going to generate the mesh, or not the mesh, the texture material, I should say, for the bowling alley here. On this one, while I'm generating that, I'm also going to generate the bowling pin as well, and it handled both at the same time. I didn't get a chance to try out the vibe coding method. That's my next goal. But yeah, these are tools. Again, from a pipeline point of view, we probably would be worried about using them, but it's interesting to see where things are going and how fast we can iterate with these AI tools. And these are fairly new in here too. So I'm just creating some collisions there and colliders for the edge, and then adding in that was the generated AI pin that it added. Just final placing it, and then you can test it in the desktop, or you can go into the VR experience to also test it as well. And adding grabbability, collisions, and gravity is very similar to Zoey, where you can do that. So you can see I'm running through in the desktop version here. And yeah, so hopefully it's a preview of some variety of tools. So hopefully I've inspired you to check out one or more of them. And yeah, just to continue to think of prototyping for what it is. It's for fast reiteration and to leave pipeline for down the road. So thank you.